The American Conservative Union is stepping into the fray, not waiting for the elected officials to defend voters, but certainly trying to create a toolkit to do the same. And their executive director, Dan Schneider, is on with us. ACU is always at the forefront for it. Dan, how are you doing, sir?
Joe, thank you a lot. I'm doing well. How are you?
Knowing that you guys have put together the Center to Protect Voters and Their Voices, is going to help. Talk about, it's obvious we all saw what, was going wrong with 45 days of unmonitored vote counting here in Virginia. And every time I bring this up, those registers are hardworking people. Joe, I didn't say they weren't hardworking, but when votes are being counted, both parties need to be in the room watching, whose votes are coming in there. That's just common sense, but that kind of stuff going on, it just leaves too many holes, Dan. So what are you guys putting together?
Well, look, Joe, it's important to always remember that our democracy is about voting. It's about voting for people to represent us, and if we don't like them, we vote them out. And for a number of years, the radical left has been scheming to figure out how can they take down the barriers that safeguard our elections. I think we can all agree, your listeners, you and I can agree, that every legal voter should be able to vote one time and one time only, and in only one state and one jurisdiction. But the radical left took an opportunity to impose their will and remove all of these barriers, and that just opened the floodgates for people to vote multiple absentee ballots or mail-in ballots that showed up at their houses, all these drop boxes, they were unmonitored. People could just stuff those with whatever ballots they could find, all the ballot harvesting, just all sorts of outrageous things. And guess what? All envelopes were removed. There was no way to determine where a ballot came from, none of that. Mm-hmm. All the polling shows that Americans, by and large, do not have confidence in the outcome of the last election. So we initially launched an initiative to protect elections, and that has really expanded as we've seen corporate America, these big corporations that no longer care about free markets or free enterprise. What they care about is being woke and serving Joe Biden and his administration. Whatever he wants, they want. And these big corporations, whether they're big tech or whether they're Major League Baseball, or whether it's the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the NCAA, or Delta Airlines, and the list goes on, they are trying to silence Americans. And worse than that, they are penalizing Americans. If you dare to have an opinion different from them, you're going to get fired. You're not going to be allowed to fly on their airline. You're not going to be able to open up a bank account. It's just outrageous. This is like how Marxism starts.
Well, isn't it fair to point, to the participation and say, well, at what point? I mean, I'm listening to Joe Biden compare asking to show an ID to vote to a poll tax. He's bringing up, you got to count the jelly beans. And I mean, these were real things that happened during the Jim Crow era. But I mean, somebody needs to take his rhetoric dictionary away from him, because he's overblowing this. And I'm worried that people are believing that that's actually happening.
Well, this is how the radical left operates. They will accuse people who have legitimate political disagreements with them. The radical left will accuse these people of being the worst, most heinous people on the planet. During Jim Crow, we had people being lynched. We had people who were not able to buy homes, who were being removed from public institutions. And Joe Biden says that making sure that only one person votes one ballot, that is somehow Jim Crow on steroids? This is disgusting. This is called democracy, where we make sure that one person votes one time. But the radical left doesn't care about the facts. They care about power. So we've started this new center to protect voters and their voices. It expands our role in trying to figure out what happened in the last election, to work in state legislatures to rebuild all these safeguards so that we can have free and fair elections, and also to put pressure on these corporations that have been trying to squeeze us. So we've already been aggressive toward the NCAA, Major League Baseball, Delta Airlines, and we issued a statement on Tuesday saying we are coming for you. the corporatists. And of course, let me just say, Joe, we believe in free enterprise and free markets. Mm-hmm. We do not believe it's the role of government to regulate into non-existence, people's businesses and their private lives. But what's going on right now is these corporations have stepped way over the line. They're no longer prioritizing shareholder wealth and the well-being of their employees and growing and being good, responsible companies. They are now getting involved in the role of government. They are now getting involved in social policy. They are trying to dictate how you and I live our lives. This is a dangerous time.
Well, let me ask you this, and this was suggested to me by a friend who said, he called his wealth manager and said he wanted he gave him a list, American Airlines, any stocks that were in his 401k that were connected to these companies. He wanted them because I listened to the folks. We have a whole organization called Divest Charlottesville that wants Charlottesville to and their retirement funds to drop any shares of any companies that they don't like. Well, I guess we could do the same thing to these companies and take away that portion of their profit if not buying their product.
Conservatives have never been good at the boycott thing, but I'll tell you that at the American Conservative Union, we have made sure that our own cash reserves are not being invested in certain companies. Google, Facebook, we are making sure that our money and our cash reserves are not investing in those companies because those companies are trying to squash you. It's trying to squash me. But Joe, I have neglected to tell people how they can get involved.
I was going to ask you that next. Yeah.
Yeah, our website is conservative.org. And you can go there. You can find out about this center. But we're going to need people's help all over the country. We heard the mainstream media for months tell us that all of these cases have been debunked that have been filed in these courts. They weren't debunked. Nobody has ever looked at the evidence.
Right. They never made it to court.
Judges out there, they toss these cases on procedural grounds, not on substantive evidence. And so we're going to collect all that evidence. We're going to go courthouse to courthouse. We're going to collect all the evidence, have a clearinghouse. We're going to get to the bottom of the 2020 election. We're going to be in state legislatures, and we need help fighting back on these corporations. We're going to make it easy for people to contact the board of directors of each of these corporations and put pressure on them, just like the left has been putting pressure on America for years.
I love it. And that's at conservative.org, and an easy to find link right there when you get there?
Yes, it's going to be the second or third big block down.
All right, very good. Dan Schneider is the executive director of the American Conservative Union. Of course, the folks who throw CPAC every year. Great job this year in Florida as well. But thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy this beautiful spring morning.
Thanks, Joe.
And thank you for tuning in for all of us here at the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. My name is Joe Thomas. So long, and thanks for all the fish.